You wake up after drowning your sorrows, still reeling from the rejection of the girl you like. But the bar is empty, and outside, a crime scene is being investigated. The police arrest you as the prime suspect, and as you try to understand what's happening, you see a lifeless body on the ground. It's her, the very girl you confessed your feelings to. This is the tragic story of a man who, now imprisoned, must survive long enough to escape and prove his innocence. In Narahira Prison, Section 4, every day is a battle. The protagonist grabs his tray, just another number in the crowd, until a stare finds him in the middle of the cafeteria, and one of them angrily asks what he's looking at so much. The other offers his food to the boss, as if it were a prize, but his silence is a reply full of disdain. Suddenly the food is thrown onto his tray without ceremony. They tell him to eat everything, and threaten him if he leaves anything behind. Then they question his stare, asking where his manners are. Then they call him a murderer, and his expression changes. He swears that he will take revenge on everyone who set him up, and they will finally feel on their skin the pain he endured alone. The gang leader doesn't understand anything, and so the protagonist advances with his fist clenched and even knocks the man down. In an instant, the man's body hits the ground, cornered. But this story began 2 weeks ago. On an ordinary night, he thought today would be the day he confessed to Mio Karasawa. Then she says she'll quickly go to the bathroom with her friend. He watches her leave, having no idea what is about to happen. Then he decides that today is the day, and he stands up determined. He soon reaches the front of the women's bathroom, and a little later, with a discreet glance, he sees her coming out. He calls her to talk, and she notices the seriousness on his face. Then he confesses, saying that he always liked her and asks her to be his girlfriend. But she rejects him, saying she's not looking for a boyfriend right now, and so she leaves him behind, alone in the hallway. He is in shock, unable to believe he was truly rejected. The pain of rejection leads him to drown all his sadness in alcohol. He drinks non-stop, trying to erase what happened from his memory. While the party goes on, he isolates himself, lost in his own darkness, until his body can't take it anymore, and he collapses onto the table. When he wakes up alone, he confusedly wonders where everyone went. He opens the door, looking for any sign of someone, and he comes across a crime scene, wondering what happened. A police officer grabs him and accuses him of very serious things. He screams in confusion as the officer arrests him for the murder of Mio Karasawa. Her name leaves him in shock, and he can't process the information. In despair, he screams that all of it is impossible to be true. They throw him at the crime scene, and he is horrified by what he sees. He sees her body on the ground and refuses to believe it. In the end, the judge sentences him to 30 years in prison for the crimes. The victim's family screams in outrage, questioning why it wasn't the death penalty. He doesn't understand how this happened, while the family demands his life as payment. The screams of hatred echo, while her image haunts his thoughts. In tears, he begs, repeating to himself that he didn't do any of it. But his father stands up, shouting that it wasn't his son, and that he is innocent. Mio's mother snaps back in fury, calling his defense an unforgivable excuse. The victim's family, blinded by pain, goes after his father without thinking. He watches helplessly as his father is beaten right in front of him. He yells for them to stop, but it's no use. While he is pulled away by another, the young man's father says that one day he will still prove his innocence. Soon after, he is taken to prison, and everyone stares at him. He is taken to his new cell, where the stairs already judge him. With his belongings in hand, he faces the uncertain future. In the darkness, a man intimidates him, and another yells that he is ignoring the boss. He cries, insisting that he didn't do anything, and that it was all a setup. Then, the shadowy figure sitting on the bed calls him closer. He approaches without understanding, fear growing with each step. Out of nowhere, a brutal kick lands straight in his stomach. The boss accuses him of the crimes, but he denies it, and another punch throws him to the ground. Another prisoner taunts him, saying that people like him deeply annoy him. The boss says the young man looks upset, and orders his men to tie him up. He begs to be released while they tie him up with brute force. One of the men gets irritated with his stubbornness, ready to attack. Blows come from all sides, breaking his entire body. With his body destroyed, he is forced to face his attacker. The leader warns him not to tell the guards anything, or the price will be high. Sometime later, a guard stops him in the hallway with news. The guard reveals that his parents died in a car accident the previous night. His world collapses as the guard presses him about having other relatives. With an empty voice, he replies that no, there's no one else, and starts crying. The guard grumbles that he wasted his time and sends him away, since he's no longer his problem. And now we return to the present in the cafeteria. Her rejection and his father's promise all come back at once. He remembers the pain, the humiliation, and realizes he has nothing left to lose. Clenching his hand in anger, he reflects that he has nothing left to lose. The man calling him a murderer echoes in his mind, but he refuses to die because his revenge hasn't even begun. He swears he will take revenge on those who framed him, slamming the table hard. Then he attacks, promising that everyone will know the suffering he endured. The boss is in shock, unable to believe the sudden turn of events. In a quick and brutal movement, he uses the chopstick to stab the man. Blood bursts everywhere, and the boss falls backward from the blow. A scream of pure pain echoes as he writhes on the floor. The henchman screams desperately upon seeing his boss being defeated right in front of him. He screams for the man to die, releasing all his rage. The others curse him, running toward him to avenge their boss. But he doesn't back down, and fear appears on the next target's face. His fists meet the enemy with unmatched violence. He thinks that if he's going to die anyway, then he'll take them all to hell with him. The man's body falls to the ground, completely defeated. Without stopping, he releases all his pain. The leader's head keeps slamming against the floor. One of his followers also runs toward the fight. Thus, he attacks the protagonist from behind. The man grows frustrated, cursing for not managing to knock him down with one hit. He seems to have gone insane as the guards arrive, shouting what's going on. A guard grabs him by the shoulder, trying to stop the fight once and for all. Hitting his face, the guard curses him for causing trouble during his shift. The head guard orders both wounded to be taken to the infirmary so no one dies on his watch. But suddenly, the protagonist breaks free and runs aimlessly, ignoring everything. The guard is in shock, unable to understand his reaction. Then he realizes the plan, shouting that he's going to throw himself against the wall. At that moment, several guards grab him tightly, finally restraining his fury. He screams, feeling the weight of everything collapsing. Then he wakes up in the infirmary, body exhausted and without the will to live. The doctor says he's hanging by a thread, and the situation is dangerous. An old janitor approaches, saying that he can't waste himself like that. Our hero just stares at him, eyes empty and hopeless. The old man questions him, saying that if he dies, no one will avenge his parents. With wide eyes, he sits up, demanding to know what he meant. The man reveals that he heard about his case and plants a seed of doubt. He asks what the old man means, and the tension in the room rises. The old man smiles, revealing that it wasn't an accident, but a murder. Exploding with rage, he grabs the old man by the collar, asking how he knows that. The old man explains that when things seem strange, there's more behind them, and asks if he killed the girl. He denies it firmly, assuring that he wasn't the one who committed that crime. The old man then reveals his theory, that his parents were killed for finding evidence and being silenced. At that moment, everything falls into place, and he realizes he always knew something was terribly wrong. But the question torments him: who would do such a thing, and why? With tears of fury, he screams that he can't die until he avenges his parents. But the old man warns him that in his current state, he can't do anything against his enemies. However, the protagonist says that about that he already knows how to survive. With a sinister smile, the old man says the boy has courage, and that he likes that. The old man says that if he survives, he will help him escape from prison. The proposal is as absurd as the hope it sparks in him. The old man goes back to sweeping as if he hadn't said anything important, and he advises him to read, saying that one day knowledge will be useful. Then he takes the book, accepting the advice of that mysterious man. The book is about human anatomy, a strange tool for the future. He asks who he is, and the old man introduces himself as Tuchiya. Tuchiya says that if he's good enough, they will meet again. Suddenly, a guard bursts into the infirmary, breaking all the silence. He shouts, questioning why he's reading. The guard yells that they went through hell because of his mess. He orders him to cool his head in solitary for a month if he's so eager to die. Then the protagonist is thrown into darkness, and the door closes. But with the book in hand, he decides he doesn't want to die anymore. He swears to himself that now he will achieve his revenge. 15 days later, the key finally turns. The day to release him has come. The guard yells that time's up, and tells him to get out if he's still alive. But the sight inside the cell leaves him completely shocked. A new man steps out, completely strong and muscular. The guard stammers, asking what he did. He replies with a smile that he was just reflecting on his crimes. Back in the yard, his steps now echo with a different weight, and it doesn't take long for the other's henchmen to find him. The henchman shouts to everyone that Tojo has finally shown his face. They surround him, warning that today will be his last day. But fear no longer exists in his gaze, only a dark smile. Suddenly, the boss appears, saying he left the hospital just for him. He swears he will make him pay 100 times for the scar he got on his face. Then he gives the order for everyone to attack at once. The henchmen advance together, trying to crush him with the strength of the group. But his look is cold and shows no fear at all. He moves like a shadow, and every strike finds a target. The boss shouts, ordering his men to stop holding back and to fight for real. Surrounded, he screams, showing his rage. Then he gives a push with his foot and makes a leap toward the leader. Suddenly, he explodes in fury, knocking down all who surround him. The boss curses, realizing too late the monster he provoked. With a cry of hatred, he advances, wanting to finish off the leader right there. The sound of the boss's pain is the only thing heard in the yard. And then he throws the man's body off the top of the building. They both fall while the leader screams without stopping. The other henchmen stay up there trying to see what happened. The leader hits his head hard on the ground and loses consciousness. Exhausted, he remembers all who made him suffer and framed him. He swears to himself that he will crush every last one of them. Even with the guards arriving, he doesn't stop pounding the body on the ground. One of the guards runs, screaming desperately for Tojo to stop. The guard warns him that if he kills someone, he will receive the death penalty. He realizes it's true, and that he can't die without avenging his parents. Angrily, he grits his teeth hard. He screams non-stop while the others watch, wondering if he has gone mad. Another 20 years are added to his sentence, and everyone's attitude changes. The guard informs him that the boss was transferred and will live in a wheelchair. He says that his wounds are healed, and will send him back to the cell, but he must not cause trouble again. With that, the protagonist understands that no one wants a madman who fears nothing nearby. Back in the corridor, he finds the shadowy figure of the old man again. He says that he survived and now collects on the promise of the escape. The old man gives a smile and accepts the young man's request. He asks if he can create an opportunity, and the young man agrees. The plan is simple and dangerous. He needs to spark a rebellion in the prison. He asks what comes next and whether he can really trust the old man. The old man reveals that the kitchen sewer is loose and it can be his exit. The old man says that if he doesn't believe him, he can go check for himself. He replies that he will do whatever it takes to get out of there and that the old man can leave it to him. Back in the cell, he walks with a new purpose, and upon arriving in the cell, he wastes no time delivering his message. He challenges anyone who wants vengeance for the former boss to step forward, but the men refuse, saying they also resented the way he treated them. Instead of revenge, they thank him and declare him their new boss. Life in prison changes completely, and now he is respected and served. The other prisoners offer him the best part of their meals. The generosity is so great that he says he cannot eat all of it. News of his victory spreads and everyone talks about the boy. But not everyone is happy, and a new enemy emerges. The new leader of the block feels disrespected by the young man's lack of submission. One of his men calms him, saying he will talk to the boy. The proposal is clear. If he joins them, the whole block will be his. The man approaches, banging the table to call his attention. He introduces himself as one of Umi's men, and questions him about his audacity. But Tojo responds with a challenge, asking if he has a problem with that. His men warn that these are dangerous people. He glances discreetly to see who this leader is. Umi orders one of his men to teach the newcomer how things work. The man gets annoyed, saying he can't be so conceited because there are rules in place, but his words are interrupted by a punch so strong that it already draws blood. Umi and his men watch the scene, shocked by his strength. The man is beaten so badly that he begs his boss for help. Umi's fury explodes, and he stands up, crushing the table with his hand. Other prisoners watch in disbelief as the tension reaches its limit. Impatient, Umi turns and runs toward the protagonist, saying he will kill him. Umi faces Tojo. The size difference between them is absurd. He says he has never seen anyone as conceited as that boy, but Tojo replies with a smile, saying that now he is right in front of him. A guard appears, shouting for them to return to their meals. Umi grumbles but promises this won't end like this. He warns that tomorrow, during the break, they will settle the score. One of Tojo's men cries. He warns that tomorrow Umi will bring all his men to crush them. Tojo calls him a coward and says they need to finish them all at once. His men stare at him, shocked by the madness of his plan. The man who was beaten kneels before him, apologizing for having lost control. He promises to give his all in the next day's fight, and the others agree. At night, in the darkness of the cell, he prepares for what's to come. The next day, the tension in the yard is almost palpable. Everyone awaits the confrontation. One of Umi's men calls the guards to smoke, distracting them. And so, the guards move away, clearing the way for the great fight. His men shout that the boss has arrived, and Tojo faces him with a smile. He tells his men to show him the determination they promised. The battle begins, and the two groups clash violently. Tojo's men fight with everything, and each strike is a promise of victory. From afar, when the guards turn around, they realize what's happening. Wasting no time, they rush to prevent further chaos. Umi attacks them mercilessly, completely ignoring the prison rules. The guard blows his whistle and lashes his whip. He shouts that this is against the rules and orders the security team to be called. But Tojo's men don't back down, and the violence only escalates. But suddenly, one of them seems to notice something. He looks around, wondering where Tojo has gone in the middle of the chaos. Far from there, Tojo takes advantage of the distraction and begins his silent escape. The old man praises him for a job well done and says it's time to get out of there. With a smile, he tells Tojo to follow him, guiding him toward freedom. They walk through the empty kitchen, taking advantage of the perfect opportunity. The old man opens the sewer grate, revealing the path to escape. The two descend into the darkness, leaving the prison behind. The old man says it stinks, but that he must endure. They crawl through the sewer, surrounded by filth and darkness. The old man says they've reached the place he wanted. From there, it's already possible to see the daylight. Tojo asks what the next step is, and the old man reassures him. He reveals that he has been there a few times before and loosened the grate. The old man tells him to push hard. Following his orders, the protagonist does so. But before he knows it, he takes a stab in the chest, without a shred of mercy. The betrayal cuts deep, and the pain mixes with the rainwater. The old man reveals his true face, a cruel smile stamped on it. He says Tojo's work ends there, and that he himself will fulfill his wish to die. He kicks Tojo, making him hit the ground hard on his back. The old man turns to leave, abandoning Tojo to die, but in one last effort, he grabs the old man's leg, refusing to give up. The old man turns, surprised to see he's still alive. Tojo reminds him of his own words, that no one would go this far for a stranger. He reveals that he hid a few tricks on his body, just in case. His chest was protected with a bandage. The old man laughs, saying he is the master of such tricks, and grips the knife. He pushes the protagonist, making him drop the knife. Then the old man grabs the weapon, and says the boy is quite naive. Moving toward another exit, Tojo grabs the tied cloth and lunges forward. When it tears, a kind of sand flies into the old man's face. Taking advantage of the old man's blindness, he attacks without a moment's hesitation. The old man screams in pain, the sand burning his eyes mercilessly. He asks what that is, not understanding how he was fooled so easily. Tojo reveals that he already knew his plan, and the old man swears he'll take him down with him. But Tojo shows the bottle, asking if that's what he was looking for. And upon seeing it, the old man can hardly believe it. Desperation takes over. The old man lunges forward, doubting that a kid like him could defeat him. but the answer comes in the form of a brutal and final strike. Fallen, the protagonist says he was right. He was naive to underestimate him. Tojo says he won't make the same mistake again, holding the knife firmly. The old man laments losing to someone like him, feeling the end approach, and thus Tojo finishes the job without any mercy. He thanks him, because thanks to him, he is now even stronger for his revenge. And finally, he walks toward the light, leaving the prison behind. He takes a deep breath, feeling for the first time the scent of freedom. He rips off the bandages, revealing the strong body he built. Now free, he declares that the time for revenge has finally come. Meanwhile, in the city, a waiter greets a police officer, asking about the search. The officer complains that the fugitive still hasn't been caught, and they've had no rest. Serving the man, the waiter asks if there weren't two fugitives. They mention that the young man's body was found burned, and that the old man disappeared. Tojo hides among them, listening to everything with a discreet smile. He threw his identification into the water, leaving his past behind. The owner of the establishment comments that the death was quite horrible. The police officer says it was well-deserved, since he was imprisoned for terrible crimes. But the older man doubts it and reveals what he heard about his parents. He says the autopsy report had something wrong, and that he needs to find him. At that moment, the protagonist stands up, but on his way out, the officer calls his attention. The officer warns him about the fugitive and asks him to report anything suspicious. He agrees, hiding the truth with a calm and controlled look. At night, he follows one of the men, the first target on his list. The man walks distractedly, thinking about what he will eat at home. Suddenly, a knife at his neck makes him stop, and fear takes over. He begs, saying he has no money and is just an intern. Tojo tells him to shut up and answer his questions honestly. He asks who ordered him to frame Manabu Tojo, and the boy asks if he is also one of Tojo's friends. That leaves our protagonist even more confused. The man threatens him, saying that if he doesn't let him go, he'll share the same fate as Yuji Suzuki. The memory of his friend hits him, and pain mixes with rage. He stabs the man in the leg and asks who did that to Yuji. He presses him, demanding to know who made him give false testimony, but the man mocks, saying that the one behind it is far beyond his reach. Tojo's response is a violent punch, and he gives the man one last chance to talk. The man reveals that the one who paid him was Rei Amano, and the name shocks Tojo. He explains that she was Mio's best friend, and that she definitely knows the truth. With red eyes full of rage, he demands to know where she is. The man begs for his life and reveals that she works in a nightclub. He asks to be released, but Tojo just drags him by his clothes. Desperate, the boy pleads not to be killed. Then the protagonist puts tape over his mouth and says that he won't kill him yet, but he must behave. Tojo throws him into a well, leaving him there, and he warns that if he doesn't come back, the man can prepare to die of hunger. The man despairs, trapped in the darkness without any hope. Meanwhile, Tojo jumps over a gate. He watches his friend, who laments not being able to avenge him. Tojo observes him, feeling pity for his old friend. The memory of when they were children strengthens him, and he swears that no one else will suffer. Yuji promises that as soon as he heals, he will prove his innocence. Tojo decides not to drag him into this anymore, and swears he will repay what he owes him. He arrives at the nightclub, ready to find the key piece of his revenge. Ria leaves the nightclub, laughing with a client. She says goodbye, promising to treat him even better next time. She looks at her watch, realizing it's time to go home, but Tojo soon starts following her, holding the knife. Something in her bag, however, catches his attention. She answers her phone, saying that she's on her way to the usual place, and he turns away, pretending not to notice. Tojo follows her discreetly, watching her enter what appears to be a net cafe. The place is run by a punk, and he suspects she's there to meet him. Tojo prepares himself, knowing he only has one chance to uncover the truth. Inside the room, she scolds him for being late. Not realizing it's Tojo, she turns around and gasps, asking how he got in. He holds a soda can, saying that he's there to make a delivery. With a quick move, Tojo immobilizes her and warns that a scream means her death. He asks if the girl knows who he is, and the girl, shocked, recognizes him as Tojo. Tojo demands to know why she framed him, but she denies having set him up. Her defense is simple. With that much money, she wouldn't be working in such a filthy place. Then only one question remains. Who is the real mastermind behind it all? Instead of a name, she advises him to run, saying he has no chance against those people. A shallow cut on her neck is his answer, showing that his patience is over. With eyes burning, he gives her one last chance, or she'll die before he does. The name finally escapes her lips, Koki Yoshida, and the revelation shocks him. The image of that man smiling flashes in his mind. At that moment, the girl's client arrives and is about to come in. The young woman says he must leave while there's still time. Tojo ignores her warning, saying that he has nothing left to lose since he no longer has his parents. The voices outside start taking advantage of the half-open door. Then the girl begins to write a note, but Tojo says she must decide whether she's on his side or not. In response, Ria says she'll find a time to talk to him, but for now he must run. Tojo takes the note and warns that if she deceives him, there will be no mercy. In the hallway, he runs into Koki Yoshida and his henchmen. The encounter is brief, but the tension between them is undeniable. Yoshida feels he has seen that face before, while Tojo keeps walking. Alone in the room, Tojo is haunted by the memories of the day of the tragedy. The image of Mio singing with Ria returns, along with the pain of loss. He cries in anger, asking why Yoshida took everything from him. The next day, he uses a public phone to call Ria. He invites her to meet him at the park at night, and she agrees. Right after, she turns her attention back to her client, who is singing. At the park, the girl waits for the protagonist, and he arrives unnoticed. As he approaches her, he immediately demands to know how his parents died, and the truth comes to light. Ria reveals that his parents obtained the autopsy report and tried to file for a new trial. Then, fearing the truth would come out, Yoshida chose to kill them and make it look like an accident. He becomes furious imagining the scene. Crying, the girl says she is sorry for what happened, but he slaps her, saying that apologies mean nothing anymore. Ria cries, saying she doesn't expect forgiveness but wants to redeem herself. Tojo shouts that her crime is something she will carry for the rest of her life. The girl says that at the time, fluids from 3 men were found in her, but none were his. That information leaves the protagonist speechless. She says that Mio went with them of her own will, and that she wasn't who he thought she was. Then we see the exact moment when Yoshida offered money to the girl. The disappointment is bitter, and he can't believe Mio was that kind of girl. With a voice full of hatred, he asks why the blame fell on him. Ri explains that they needed a culprit, and since he was rejected that same day, they used it to their advantage. Tojo stares at her, needing to be sure that all of it is true. She swears that she hates him as much as he does, and that she was threatened into helping. With renewed determination, Tojo swears he will crush Yoshida, but Ria warns him that Yoshida now has 8 bodyguards, all professionals. She advises him to forget about revenge and run away, because he stands no chance. Ria reminds him that his parents would have wanted him to live, not die. Tojo spares her in exchange for the truth, but warns her not to interfere with his plans. Tojo calls her to go with him, making it clear that she has no choice. He explains that he can't let her go until everything is resolved. Then he asks for her phone, and the girl hands it over without hesitation. Tojo pushes her into the well, along with the other man he captured. Ria begs, saying she doesn't want him to die and that it's her fault. But Tojo warns her that if he dies, she'll die of hunger along with the other one. Inside, she realizes there's another man in the same place. The next day, he prepares for the next step and heads to the nightclub. He watches Koki Yoshida, the main target of his revenge. Yoshida invites the girl to go to the bathroom. The young woman says he's quite bold for suggesting that. Then he tells the guards to stay there while he goes. Tojo knows that his chance to get him alone is now. One of the bodyguards tries to stop him from entering, but he says he just wants to use the bathroom. However, the guard is not intimidated and keeps staring. The bodyguard lets him through and he enters the bathroom without wasting time. Inside, he hears sounds that confirm his suspicions. Tojo knocks on the door, and holding the knife, he prepares to act. Without wasting time, he kicks the door open, and the girl, who was only doing her job, doesn't understand anything. Yoshida is startled by the intrusion and asks if he wants to die. Tojo attacks him without saying a word, but the enemy manages to dodge the blow. Yoshida questions him, not understanding what's happening. Tojo lunges again, and the man grabs his hand, trying to stop him. Yoshida finally recognizes him, but at that moment, the guards end up coming in. Seeing he's at a disadvantage, he uses the toilet and jumps to the other side. He ends up near the window, and without thinking twice, he jumps through it, shattering all the glass. Enraged, Yoshida offers a reward for his capture. Yoshida's guards jump out the window, trying to reach the fugitive. Through the streets, the chase is relentless, with Tojo running for his life. They shout for the bastard to stop, but he doesn't dare look back. Out of nowhere, they lose sight of him, and Tojo emerges from a pile of trash. He laments having come so close, knowing his time is now short, but deep down he knows there's still one last chance to win. Far away, a luxury car arrives at an upscale building. Inside, a police officer asks for confirmation if it was Manabu Tojo who attacked Yoshida. With hatred in his eyes, Yoshida orders them to capture that bastard before he kills him. Meanwhile, in the well, despair grows until a rope is thrown down. Rian faces Tojo, and her first question is whether he managed to kill Yoshida. He admits he messed everything up, while the other man crawls, begging for water. Tojo throws down some water and food, a minimal gesture of mercy. His cold gaze already plans the next step, without any hesitation. Suddenly, Amano's phone rings, and Yoshida's name flashes on the screen. With a gesture for silence, the protagonist warns that any sound will be fatal. On the phone screen, Koki Yoshida's name appears, and his desperate voice echoes. In silence, Tojo listens to the call, waiting for the right moment to act. On the other end, Yoshida taunts, realizing he is with Amano. Tojo's answer is a promise of death. The next meeting will be the last. The enemy's final move is to use Yuji, the friend who was left behind. With desperation in his voice, the protagonist demands his friend's freedom. An exchange is proposed. Tojo's surrender for Yuji's life. In an attempt to negotiate, the 2 hostages are offered in return for the friend, but the response is cold and cruel. Their lives mean nothing to Yoshida. The final card is revealed, the copy of the report that incriminates them all. Accused of bluffing, Tojo is confronted by Yoshida's disbelief. The game shifts, and Yoshida's question reveals his interest in the evidence. With a firm voice, the demand is clear, his name cleared, because death is not an option. He says he wants to bury him with his own hands, and that this is the only way. Yoshida's proposal is tempting. Money and a clean name in exchange for the report. The deal is sealed, and the meeting for the next day is set. In the well, his hostages warn him of the obvious trap. Knowing the risks, he accepts because there is no other way. He then throws the phone to the ground and tells them they can do whatever they want. The girl tries to stop him, saying he'll be killed if he goes. With a firm look, he says he can't drag Yuji into this any longer. In a shop, he chooses the clothes for the upcoming battle. On the street, a man looks for his knife, not knowing it already has a new owner. In another store, 2 bottles of whiskey are bought and wrapped as gifts. In an abandoned building, the stage for revenge is prepared. Around the fire, he gets ready, wrapping his hands with bandages. Then he bows in a gesture of respect. On his knees, he asks his parents for strength for the final battle to come. The bodyguards wait for him, surprised that he actually showed up. Surrounded, he shows no fear, only the determination of someone who has nothing left to lose. The order is clear. He cannot leave alive, and the men obey. As soon as he enters, an employee closes the gate. With a voice full of hatred, he shouts for Yoshida to come down and face him. A mocking smile is the response, and the invitation to come in is made. Yoshida's men await him, ready for battle. With a firm voice, Tojo demands that Yuji be released or he will leave. Yuji is thrown to the ground, a pawn in Yoshida's cruel game. Yoshida boasts about keeping his promises, releasing the wounded friend. One of the henchmen questions the decision, but Yoshida has a plan. He explains that Yuji's arms and legs are destroyed, so the protagonist won't be able to carry him. Yuji can't believe what he sees. Manabu is alive right before him. Yuji refuses to flee, saying they are in this together. Yoshida's impatience grows, and he orders Tojo to come in at once. The friend tries to stop him, warning of the deadly trap. Tojo pushes him aside, shouting for Yoshida to release him because he's coming in. Yuji refuses to leave, insisting he will see it all to the end. With one final request, Tojo asks him to live and visit his grave. Yuji shouts for him to stop, but the decision has already been made. Alone, Tojo walks toward the door, ready for the final confrontation. Inside, Yoshida waits, smiling like someone who already considers himself the victor. Surrounded by blades, Tojo enters the mansion, ready for whatever comes. His gaze is cold, red eyes glowing with the promise of revenge. Yoshida's men surround him, ready to attack at the slightest sign. From the stairs, Yoshida greets him, asking if he brought what he promised. Tojo laughs, saying he's not stupid enough to bring something that important there. The henchmen rush in with machetes, while Tojo pulls something from his coat. With a smile, he shows the bottles of whiskey, inviting them to have some fun. Yoshida doesn't understand, and asks if that's some kind of gift. The contents of the bottles, however, are not what they seem, but gasoline. Heavy footsteps approach and a new figure appears at the door. Yoshida's father appears, an unexpected surprise. The confused son asks what he's doing there. With a cold voice, he says he's there to clean up his son's mess, and right after, he orders them to throw Yuji and Rui to the ground. Tojo turns, his plan falling apart. His friends are taken hostage, complicating the situation. Yoshida's father orders that if something is to be done, it should leave no traces. The son hesitates to kill the girl, saying she would be one of them. But the response is cold. He calls his son weak and questions the girl's loyalty. The truth comes to light. It was she who told Tojo's parents about the report. The revelation shocks the protagonist, who also had no idea. Then she ends up taking a slap to the face, but the one who does it is Yoshida himself, for her betrayal. She defends herself, saying her heart isn't rotten and that she couldn't stand seeing Tojo's parents searching for witnesses anymore. Threatened, she is kicked to the ground, her fate sealed by the man's fury. Then the old man asks if that was Tojo, and staring at the protagonist, he questions whether he has already forgotten his face. With a contemptuous smile, he says there's no need to remember trash. The question everyone wants to know echoes in the hall. Where is the copy of the report? Smiling, Tojo says he wouldn't dare say where it is. With a snap of the fingers, the henchmen prepare for the attack. The old man brags about the power that supports him, saying it doesn't matter where the report is. For him, once everyone is dead, everything will be over. With a smile on his face, he says he's going to tell him one more thing. The revelation is shocking. The men who killed his parents are right there. His veins bulge from sheer rage. His fist clenches, the restrained power ready to be unleashed. With a scream of hatred, the name of the true culprit echoes in the hall. Tojo swears that even an insect fights back when cornered, and that he will show them what pain means. The bottles fly and the flammable liquid spreads across the floor. One of the men slips, surprised by the unexpected trap. Panic sets in as the man tries to get up on the slippery ground. Before he can rise, the protagonist slits another man's throat. The old man and his son realize the trap and curse him for playing so dirty. Without hesitation, Tojo advances and slashes the throat of another henchman. With his men frozen, Yoshida orders them to capture the protagonist. They rush at him, and Tojo already prepares to counterattack. To confuse his enemies, he flips to the other side. Yoshida shouts, ordering his men to kill him once and for all. Surrounded by the henchmen, the protagonist pulls something from his pocket. Amid the chaos, he throws a powder, temporarily blinding his enemies. The distraction is enough for him to advance and finish off another one. He is determined to end them all to save his friends. One of the men tries to wipe his eyes, but it's already too late. Tojo strikes, the blade cutting before there's even time to react. Even with superior numbers, the henchmen are losing, and this worries Yoshida. Then his father calls him, ordering him to bring the drink. Yoshida realizes the powder is lime, and that only alcohol can wash it off. Rian realizes what he's about to do. She grabs the man's leg, making him furious, and he tells her to get off. Then he begins kicking her mercilessly. Fallen to the floor, the girl says that's all she can do for the protagonist. Many of the henchmen are already dead, but the ones left are washing their faces with alcohol. The old man orders them not to rush and to be careful with the caged rat. Then his men begin to advance. But what Tojo didn't expect is that one of them would come from behind and immobilize him. Yoshida's father shouts for them to attack, taking advantage of the opportunity. The battle resumes, and the men surround the protagonist from all sides. With a shout, Yuji throws himself in front of one of the henchmen. He ends up taking a kick and also a punch. Tojo takes advantage of the distraction to finish that unfortunate man off. Seeing this, Yoshida is enraged for not having finished the protagonist sooner. Tojo keeps fighting, his body moving with deadly precision. With Yuji wounded, Yoshida's fury turns toward him, threatening to kill him. While fighting, the protagonist sees that his friend is in danger, but he must stay alert to the others closing in. The battle continues, and the henchmen give no respite, advancing without fear. With a cold smile, Tojo offers fire to his enemies drenched in alcohol. Panic spreads, but it's too late to escape. The burning bodies writhe on the ground, revenge finally begun. Yuji takes a kick, feeling his life near its end. Yoshida is already ready to cut him down with his sword. But our hero arrives in time and lands a kick square in the pale man's face. Yoshida falls, wondering how it came to this. The protagonist steps on his face and asks what his last words will be. But the old man holds a knife to poor Rai's neck, saying that if he doesn't release his son, he will kill her. Tojo dares him to try, while Yoshida begs for his life. The man says he will clear Tojo's name and would even give him money. The old man agrees and says he won't forgive him if he kills his son. With a dark look, Tojo asks if he looks like someone afraid of dying. Ria sacrifices herself, begging Tojo to forget her and kill the bastard. Tojo demands all the money he has, and Yoshida agrees, saying he even has gold bars. As he climbs the stairs to fetch them, the old man remembers there's a gun up there and that his son will surely get it. He then says aloud that after he delivers the money, everything will be settled between them. But Tojo is not deceived, and his gaze reveals that the game is far from over. The girl elbows the old man to get a chance to escape, and without wasting time, the protagonist grabs the knife and seizes the old man by the hair, and with a final strike, the old man's life fades in his hands. The body hits the ground, losing a lot of blood. Ria feels dizzy and almost collapses. But the protagonist arrives just in time to catch her. She warns him about the gun in the house. Meanwhile, Yoshida is indeed loading the revolver. He comes down the stairs, shouting that he brought the money. The sight shocks him, his father dead on the floor and his men defeated. With a voice full of hatred, he asks where Tojo is hiding. A voice comes from behind a hiding spot, catching his attention. He shoots without thinking, but the voice keeps echoing from another place. The sound comes from a recorder, a perfect lure to draw him in, and suddenly, Tojo appears, slicing the hand holding the gun. Then he slams him to the ground. Yoshida screams, accusing him of betrayal and asking why he killed his father. With a cold voice, Tojo reminds him that he promised to kill them both, and that he keeps his promises, and with a final strike, Yoshida's life fades, and blood spreads. The two survivors look at the body in disbelief. With tears in his eyes, Tojo says he has avenged his parents. The two look at their friend, finally free from his enemies. Tojo tells Ria to get Yuji out of there, because he still has something to do. In the safe, he finds the money, the gold bars, and a mysterious envelope, and he already imagines what it might be. In the snow, Yuji and Ri lean on each other, waiting for their friend to come out, but something seems to catch their attention. Tojo is coming out, and with him is the suitcase full of money. He hands them the money, telling them to hide and not contact anyone. Rian feels guilty, remembering that she betrayed him, but he forgives her, saying that she was threatened too, and that they're even now. Yuji asks if he's not coming with them, not understanding his friend's decision. Tojo says he can't run anymore, and Yuji grabs his arm, swearing to stay by his side no matter what. With the envelope in hand, Tojo says he has a plan and won't drag them into it. Rian can't believe what she hears, shocked by his decision. He asks for just one night to settle everything, and promises to come back alive. Rian starts walking, pulling Yuji along, but he says he can't leave the protagonist alone. She holds him, saying that now they must trust Tojo. Alone, Tojo watches his friends walk away, carrying the weight of his decision. The next day, the scene is of another crime. One of the officers lies dead on the ground. Far away, under a bridge, Yuji and Ria rest. Yuji asks what's inside the envelope, his curiosity consuming him. Ria guesses that they are documents proving the crimes of the city's elites. Not understanding, he asks why something like that would be in that house. The answer is simple and frightening. The father of Yoshida was the deputy chief of police. She explains that when he took control of the evidence, he gained the protection of the higher-ups and did whatever he wanted. Knowing that his friend went after those dangerous people alone, Yuji says he will go too, but the girl tries to calm him, saying that Tojo still has a chance to get what he wants. She explains that the old man used that evidence to manipulate the elites, and that's why they wanted him dead too. Ria believes that Tojo's only chance to survive is to join them. At night, dressed formally, he prepares for the final part of his plan. Under the starry sky, he walks toward a temple, the lair of his new target. He arrives before a staircase and decides he will climb it. The guards stop him, saying the area is restricted, but he demands to see Gota. They say the boss is resting and that he should come back tomorrow, but Tojo insists, saying it has to be today, no matter what happens. One of the guards threatens him, asking if he has a death wish. With his hand in his bag, he prepares to show that he's not bluffing. He throws Yoshida's head on the ground, a clear warning of his intentions. With a cold voice, he tells them to inform that Yoshida has already been taken care of. The guard, shocked, asks for a minute and goes inside to inform the boss. 2 minutes later, permission is granted and the door opens. Inside, the atmosphere is heavy and Tojo is met by more guards. The door opens, revealing the interior of the temple. Gota sits surrounded by his men and a woman who serves him. He picks up the teacup. Gota recognizes him and asks if he is Tojo. Tojo asks back if he knows who he is. The boss reveals that old Manjiro had requested a few men from him to finish him off, so he already imagined who he was. Tojo asks for help, and Gota finds it very bold to make such a request after killing his men, but even so he shows no fear. Tojo challenges him, saying that if he truly believes those men are loyal, he should kill him right there. Gota is impressed by his courage and asks for a reason to let him live. With the envelope in hand, Tojo shows his trump card. He hands the envelope to the woman, who takes it to the boss. The woman approaches and shows the contents to the boss. Inside, a compromising photo, but Gota is unfazed and asks if he really thinks he can threaten him with that. With a smile, our hero says that maybe it makes no difference to him, but it certainly would to those above him. The old man threatens to kill him, and in response Tojo asks if he has any idea how many he has already killed today. Gota mocks, saying he's nowhere near his level. Tojo explains that if he doesn't return by midnight, the evidence will be sent to the investigation. Gota remains calm, and asks what that has to do with him. Tojo reveals that the last place Yoshida's killer was seen was there. Gota finally understands, realizing that he came to drag him into it as well. The offer is made. Either he helps and earns more money, or he sinks with them. Gota laughs, saying he's an amusing boy, just like he was when young. He pours a drink, and the two drink together, sealing the dangerous deal. Gota agrees but sets a condition. From now on, Tojo will be under his command. Tojo accepts, swearing to dedicate his life to him. Gota gives orders, sending one of his men to clean up Yoshida's mess. The man agrees and leaves to carry out the boss's command. Gota tells the woman to treat Tojo well and keep him there for the night. Tojo reminds him that if he doesn't return by midnight, the evidence will be sent. Gota smiles, telling him to stop the act. He realizes Tojo never planned to return, and the protagonist bows an apology. With a smirk, Tojo apologizes while Gota walks away. He is taken to a guest room, the first part of the plan complete. A woman enters, slowly undressing. The seduction is obvious, a test of his resolve. She invites him, saying that Gota ordered her to give him special treatment. But Tojo refuses, showing his focus is elsewhere. He even throws her clothes back for her to get dressed. With the excuse of being exhausted, he sends her away and shuts the door. The woman becomes angry for being rejected. In the bath, the protagonist takes a moment to relax. Gota is informed of the refusal. The woman comments that he didn't even look at her twice. Gota is impressed, admitting he's not an ordinary man. The woman asks if they should keep watching the boy. Gota agrees, knowing he's dangerous and must be kept under control. Doubt lingers in the air, whether they can truly use him as a pawn. The woman agrees, ready to follow the boss's orders. In the room, Tojo sleeps, a deep sleep after so much tension. The next morning, he wakes as if coming out of a nightmare. The woman wakes him, greeting him with a kind gesture. He thanks her and says he needs to leave to take care of his business, but she stops him, telling him not to rush and to watch the news. On TV, the report of a fire that killed Yoshida and his family. Tojo is impressed by Gota's efficiency but wonders about the others. The woman explains that the bodyguards were criminals and no one will care. She invites him to relax, saying he has nothing left to worry about. He asks her name. She laughs and introduces herself as Ayame Munakata. Tojo apologizes to Ayame, saying he still has something to do. He leaves her behind, and the woman watches him go with anger in her eyes once again. Under the bridge, he finally reunites with his friends. Rhea sees him approaching, and a spark of hope lights her eyes. She runs to hug him, relieved that he's safe. In the background, his friend says he knew he'd make it back alive. He announces that the chase is over, and from today on, they're free. Moved, the girl hugs him tightly, crying. Confused, Yuji asks why Tojo isn't crying too, since it's good news. In an old building, they find a new home, far from everything. Rhea prepares a meal, showing a talent no one expected. Yuji compliments her, surprised by the girl's cooking skills. She brags, saying she's lived on her own since she was 8. The three make a toast, celebrating the beginning of a new life. Together, they share a meal, a moment of peace amid the chaos. Rhea asks Tojo what his plans are for the future. Thoughtful, with a glass in hand, Tojo considers using the money stolen from Yoshida to start a small business. Yuji thinks it's great, saying that way they can also be their own bosses. The girl agrees and says she'll help with whatever is needed. Worried about the girl's future, Yuji asks if she will finally abandon her dangerous nightlife, pouring her heart out about her sick brother and the death of her parents. She thanks Tojo for giving her the chance to start over from zero. To celebrate this achievement, they decide to make a toast. Then exhaustion finally overcomes Yuji, who passes out on the couch, his body still wrapped in bandages and pain. On the improvised floor, the protagonist tries to find a moment of rest after so many bloody battles. With nowhere else to go, the girl suddenly appears, asking for shelter just a little longer. Since the couch was already taken, she offers to sleep on the cold floor in his place. With a gentle touch on his shoulder, she says she knows he still has unhealed wounds, and that they could share the bed. So the two lie side by side, not even moving out of embarrassment. In the next room, their friend tosses in his heavy sleep, unaware of everything happening inside. In a sincere whisper, Rian confesses that she had watched him from afar since their school days, but her words fade into the air, as extreme exhaustion had already carried the boy into deep sleep. The next morning, while walking down the street, their friend curiously asks if the girl will now live with them. The protagonist says yes, and that they'll have to buy another bed. But the friend is relaxed, saying that with Yoshida's money, the three of them will manage fine for a while. Their peace, however, is interrupted by a group of thugs on the street. One of them points, asking if that's not Yuji. Tojo then stares at him and asks if by any chance he knows that guy. Yuji tries to walk away, saying it's better not to mess with them. The man mocks, saying he went easy on him last time, since he can still walk. Tojo understands everything and asks if they were the ones who broke his friend's arms and legs. Desperate, Yuji pleads, saying he did nothing and begs them not to start a fight, but the leader warns that Kuro ordered him to disappear and that he'll beat him every time he sees him. Then Tojo steps forward, facing the threat head-on. The man asks if there's a problem with that and provokes him fearlessly. Without warning, the answer comes in the form of a devastating punch to the man's face. His body flies, and he hits the ground, defeated before even understanding what happened. While his companions rush to help him, the man curses the protagonist. He opens his shirt, revealing the scars from every battle he's fought. One of them shouts for the other to stop standing still and go at him already, and the two rush together, charging to crush him. But on his face there's no fear, only the promise of pain. They attempt a double attack, surrounding him to leave no escape. But his speed is something else, and the first punch lands perfectly. He unleashes all his rage, smashing the man's face against the asphalt. Each blow is a sentence, delivered without hesitation or mercy. The last one tries a desperate strike, coming from the side, but Tojo stops the punch with one hand, as if it were nothing, and the counterattack comes with the force of a hammer, breaking everything. The shock on his face says it all. He messed with the wrong man. The other tries to get up, begging to talk things out and settle it peacefully, but Tojo grabs him. The time for talking has passed. He raises his fist, ready to finish the job once and for all. Yuji holds him back, begging him to stop, saying that if someone dies, their peace will be over. He warns that he'll let it go for today, but next time there won't be any mercy. He wouldn't even be able to walk. The man swears he'll tell the boss and crush them tonight, but Tojo simply says he can come. Yuji explains that the boss is a guy named Kuro, who runs the entire area and is very dangerous. With his hand on Yuji's shoulder, the decision is made. Tojo says they should prepare to take down this Kuro, because if they win, the whole area will be theirs. Yuji realizes he's truly changed, as if he were a different person, but Yuji warns that they'll bring a lot of men, and the two of them alone won't be enough. Then Yuji remembers two guys he helped before, and says he'll call them for the fight, an alley forgotten by the city. The reinforcements don't look very promising. Tojo comments that they don't seem very reliable for a fight. Yuji replies that they might not be skilled, but they're people he trusts. One of the men asks Yuji who the opponent is this time. Yuji answers that the target is Kuro, clenching his fist in anger. The friend asks if he means that Kuroki, the boss of the area. Our hero explains that they were the ones who beat Yuji, but if they don't want to help, that's fine. But one of them shouts no, saying he's always wanted to smash that bastard's face. The other agrees with a grin, saying he's been waiting to hear that. Tojo thinks they're braver than he expected, as he should have known. He warns that courage alone won't win, and that for a smaller group to defeat a larger one, they'll need to use the place to their advantage. Then at night, a van from the enemy is already arriving. Kuroki's men step out, armed to the teeth. The boss asks if this is really the place for the confrontation. His henchman confirms, saying they stayed there all day waiting. Kuroki wants to know exactly how many they are. The man reports that there are 5, and that the guy who attacked them is very dangerous. But Kuroki laughs, saying he's dangerous too, and orders everyone to go crush them. From inside, they watch the arrival of the enemies. The entire team waits, in total silence. The first part of the trap is ready for the attack, and with a kick, the enemy bursts the door open. Kuroki and his men enter, surrounding everyone inside. Then he asks if it was Tojo, the bastard who beat up his men. Tojo responds coldly, confirming that it was him. Kuroki laughs, saying the boy's got a lot of nerve. Then he gives the order, telling his men to grab the bastard. The henchmen charge in, ready for the massacre. But from above, the first surprise of the night is dropped. Kuroki shouts that it's Lime and orders them to drag down whoever is throwing it from above. One of the men tries to climb up, wanting to catch whoever set the trap, but he's met with a direct kick to the face, falling without a chance. He smiles. The trap worked perfectly. Suddenly another trap is triggered amid the confusion, and another one is caught off guard, soaked to the bone. Kuroki gets angry, accusing them of fighting dirty. They seize the chance, attacking the enemies without giving them a moment to breathe. The strike lands perfectly, and the man screams in pain. Another one stands up, cursing them for playing dirty, but Tojo stares at him and asks if he's ever heard of an eye for an eye. Then a brutal kick sends him flying straight to the ground. The enemies are all defeated while Tojo remains firm. Their leader calls him a coward and says he'll kill him. Taking off his shirt, the protagonist invites him to a one-on-one fight. Kuroki accepts, saying he's got courage. He also takes off his shirt, showing the fight just got serious. The two face each other, ready for the final showdown that will decide everything. Kuroki charges with the first punch, wanting to end it quickly, but Tojo dodges and counterattacks with brutal precision. The boss tries to grab him, holding onto his arm. Then he locks the protagonist in a chokehold, and so he restrains him, controlling Tojo's every move. Tojo warns the others to stay back, that one's his alone. Rya thinks that if he wants to lead, he must win with his own hands. Kuroki swears he'll send every one of them straight to hell. The pressure increases, and Tojo starts to run out of air. He remembers everyone who destroyed him, and the anger strengthens him. Yuji asks Rya if they shouldn't help now. Kuroki shouts that he's weak and can't possibly beat him. But Tojo's legs move with a new purpose, and with a quick move, he slams Kuroki to the ground, completely turning the fight. Tojo prepares for the final strike, hatred written all over his face. Kuroki gathers all his strength, ready to end the fight. Holding the protagonist's hand, he asks if that's all he's got. Tojo's response comes as a roar of pure fury, and a brutal headbutt hits the boss, who challenges him to hit harder and see who lasts longer. He accepts the challenge, the pain mixing with his will to win. With both hands on his head, Tojo readies the next blow. Another headbutt explodes against Kuroki's face, and one of the men asks if he's lost his mind. The boss staggers, dizzy and nearly falling, and finally collapses, defeated by Tojo's strength. Yuji's friends stand in shock, admitting he's too strong. Seeing their boss on the ground, his men get ready to attack as a group. But Yuji's allies form a barrier, warning that they won't get through. Ria yells for them to stop, saying the fight is already decided. Kuroki is on the ground, and Tojo says he lost. Their score is settled, but he adds that one thing remains, the debt he owes Yuji, and with a final kick, he strikes Kuroki, without a shred of mercy. The scream of pain echoes, his leg breaking. One of the men shouts that it's enough, warning that he called his cousin from the police. Tojo says that's fine, they can wait, but his friend panics saying they need to run. Tojo calms him, saying no one's getting arrested and they'll wait right there. Yuji's friend already accepts defeat, thinking this could be the end for them. Yuji places his hand on his shoulder, asking him to trust his partner. Suddenly, heavy footsteps approach, breaking the silence in the room. The police arrive and one of them asks what's going on there. The man lies, saying they were attacked first and that the others don't fear the police. The officer stares at him, asking if he really had the guts to hit Kuro and his cousin. At that moment, Tojo understands everything and realizes the support Kuroki always bragged about. The officer smiles, saying it's too late to realize it, he'll rot in prison. With blood on his face, Tojo asks if he really has that much power. The man brags, saying no one talks to him like that because he's the one who makes the rules around here. The henchman asks his cousin to let him land a punch after they arrest them. With a cruel smile, the corrupt cop orders them all to be taken away, and the other officers move in, ready to carry out the order. But Tojo interrupts, asking if he can make one phone call first. The officer mocks him, saying he can call whoever he wants because no one can stand up to him. Tojo warns that in 5 minutes he'll be the one on his knees begging for forgiveness. The henchman asks if he doesn't know who Hodaka is to boss Tanaka, and Tojo says he has no idea. He reveals that the cop is the boss's nephew, and that above them all is the untouchable Manjiro. At that moment, Tojo realizes they still don't know he's already dealt with Manjiro. The cop challenges him to make the call and see who'll end up kneeling, and Tojo accepts the challenge. He dials the number of Ayame Munakata, God is woman. The call connects, and he simply says hello to the other side. After a brief pause, he only confirms that he understood, and then he hangs up, offering no further explanation. He thinks this is the perfect chance to see if he can really trust Gata. Meanwhile, Ayame informs the boss that Tojo is asking for help. Gata remains silent, seated in his chair. Then he tells her to refuse, saying Tojo is a useless man who only makes demands without any respect. Ayame warns that if they abandon him, he may stop trusting them, but Gata doesn't care. She insists, saying that no matter how wild he is, he's still within their grasp. Gata gives in, saying he'll send Muto to handle it just for her, but that Tojo will have to pay later. The cop mocks, asking where all that confidence from 5 minutes ago went. Tojo wonders if Gata has no intention of helping him, or if he's just trying to take what's left from him. The cop loses his patience and orders them all to be taken to the station at once. Out of nowhere, one of Yuji's men grabs the cop by the arm. The cop threatens him, asking if he knows what happens when someone lays a hand on a police officer. The henchman tells him to surrender, because today is the end of the line for him. Yuji's friend already accepts his fate, whispering that it looks like this is the end. But the cop's phone rings, and he realizes it's someone important. On the call, someone says he has crossed the line. In response, the cop says he just arrested a few bastards. The boss asks if one of those bastards isn't a man named Manabu Tojo. The cop confirms, and Tojo's expression shows the game is getting interesting. With fear in his voice, the cop says he'll release them immediately. And then he hangs up, trembling with fear. The henchman asks what he's doing and tells him to hurry up, but the cop yells at him to shut up, leaving the man confused. Then he punches his cousin, saying he had the nerve to touch Manabu. The other officers also try to understand what just happened. The cop apologizes, saying the ones at fault are those pieces of trash on the floor. With a dark look, Yuji reminds him of what he said earlier. Tojo stares at him with eyes burning and orders him to kneel and apologize. Without hesitation, the corrupt cop falls to his knees, and with a trembling voice, he begs them to spare their lives. Everyone else watches the unexpected scene. Then the protagonist hits him in the face. He tells them to disappear and that he never wants to see their faces again. With a fake smile, the cop says, "Yes, sir," and so they leave the place. One of the men says he didn't know he was that strong and that from now on, Tojo is their boss. Another steps forward and also swears loyalty to the new leader. Rian smiles, saying she already expected that. He asks them not to call him boss and says that whoever joins him won't regret it. One of them smiles, saying that with Manabu, they know they'll go far. Tojo thinks for a moment and says maybe it's time to start a business. The group stares at him, not understanding the new idea. He explains that with Kuroki out of the way, it's their chance to take everything and make real money. They're shocked by the plan, but Tojo warns that if they're going to do something, they must go all in, otherwise it's pointless. Then he asks Ria to take the evidence and pay a visit to Goda for him. He explains that he'll make a deal with the boss who controls the Shadow District. Ima enters, informing the boss that a gift from Manabu Tojo has just arrived. The boss simply waits as Ri approaches. Rian hands the envelope to Goda, saying it was Tojo's request. She explains that the evidence of bribery will give him an advantage against one of the city's biggest names. Goda examines the proposal in silence. The power in the room is almost tangible. She waits for his response, not backing down. A smile forms on the boss's face, then she reveals that, in fact, there's one more favor to ask. He tells her to continue, curious about what comes next. She reveals that their next target is Shuhei Yoshimura. Goda scoffs, saying he wouldn't bother with someone so insignificant. She says that if he only cuts Yoshimura's connection with the police, they'll handle the rest. He asks what he gains from that since the job seems easy. She assures him that once the task is done, he'll have a generous return. The proposal seems to please the old boss. An hour earlier, they discover that Yoshimura is the kingpin who controls everything in the area. He explains that Kuroki was just a henchman of Yoshimura, who is fully tied to boss Tanaka. Tojo understands that if he wants to negotiate with Yoshimura, he needs to silence Tanaka first. Yuji's friend stares at him, impressed by the boldness of the plan. Tojo realizes that taking down Kuroki won't even make Tanaka flinch, and that silencing him will be hard. They arrive at Yoshimura's mansion, ready for the next step. Yuji's friend warns him that a rich guy like that will have plenty of bodyguards. Tojo calms him, saying they're not there to destroy but to negotiate. With renewed confidence, the man says he puts his life in the boss's hands, and so they advance, ready to enter the enemy's lair. Out of nowhere, fierce guard dogs appear to greet them. They lunge forward, growling, ready to attack without hesitation. Tojo tells them not to be afraid, saying they're just a bunch of mutts, but the dogs suddenly stop, intimidated by a greater force. The image of a tiger looms over Tojo, and the dogs retreat in fear. A voice calls out, telling them to follow that way, and Yoshimura himself appears, asking if he's Manabu Tojo. He answers with a confident smile. Yoshimura accuses him of breaking Kuroki's legs, and asks if he's come after them now. Tojo explains that what happened to Kuroki was personal, and that today he's here for business. Yoshimura laughs and tells him to get lost, saying a bastard like him can't do business with him. His bodyguards move in, ready to throw them out by force, but Yuji's friend grabs one, defending his boss. Another shouts for them not to lay a finger on him. The men warn that if that's how they want it, they won't hold back anymore. The fight begins, and each punch is an explosion of violence. The protagonist grabs one of the men by the neck, refusing to back down. Then he releases his fury, smashing the man's head against his knee. The bodyguard's body collapses, defeated and helpless. Another one warns that they'll pay for that. Yoshimura threatens to throw them in prison with a single call. Tojo challenges him to call, saying they'll wait right there. With rage on his face, Yoshimura says he's really asking for it. He calls boss Tanaka, asking for reinforcements against some bastards in his place. On the other end, Tanaka refuses the request, saying he can't touch Tojo, and that Yoshimura is on his own. The call ends, leaving Yoshimura in shock. He can't understand, it seems the support he trusted so much has abandoned him. Tojo smiles and asks if he can finally come in to talk. With no choice, Yoshimura lets him in, saying he'll at least hear what he has to say. Inside, the tension is heavy, and the boss glares at him with hatred. Tojo is served, but the peace in the room is only an illusion. Yoshimura asks what he wants, and Tojo gets straight to the point. He says he heard that Kuroki was managing some of his arcades. He says what happened to Kuroki was his fault, but as an apology, he wants to take over the business. One of Yoshimura's men gets furious, asking who he thinks he is, and he pulls a gun, asking if he has a death wish. Yoshimura questions him, saying he's never heard of him before. Tojo reminds him that as soon as Tanaka heard his name, he refused immediately. He starts to understand, and wonders if the bastard has someone who can move even boss Tanaka. He says that if Manjiro were still alive, he would never be disrespected by a brat like him. Tojo asks if he's talking about Manjiro Yoshida. Yoshimura is surprised and asks if he knows him. He reveals that Manjiro set him up once, but that he's no longer in this world. The truth hits like a bomb, and he realizes the story about the fire was a lie. Tojo says that if he's got what it takes, he can handle the business, but he wants 70% of the profits. With a grin, he confirms the offer, 70 for him and 30 for Yoshimura. One of the men gets angry, calling him an arrogant bastard. Tojo stares him down and tells him to stay out of it. Yuji's friend stands up, ready for a fight, but Yoshimura orders everyone to be quiet, and says they'll follow Tojo's lead. Tojo changes the deal, saying he'll actually take 80%. Yoshimura grits his teeth but accepts the new condition. Tojo says he's glad to settle things quickly, and that he looks forward to working with him. He extends his hand to seal the deal, and so a new and dangerous alliance is formed in the underworld. One of them brags about taking down the henchman with a single hit, and says Yoshimura's face was priceless. Yuji smiles and says it seems they now have a steady income guaranteed. But Tojo warns that it might not be that easy since Yoshimura's reaction was strange. He says they can't let their guard down for even a second. One of Yoshimura's men swears he'll gather a few guys and take out Tojo quietly. Yoshimura scolds him, saying he's the one who decides that. The man apologizes, but the boss already knows he can't trust him. He warns that a punk like him shouldn't talk about killing because Tojo has very dangerous backing. But the man says he's not afraid and that at worst he'll take him down with him. Yoshimura asks if he knows why he handed over Kuroki's shop so easily. The man doesn't understand, asking what he means by that. With a dark smile, he reveals there are ways to erase people without dirtying one's own hands. Yuji's friend studies a map, planning the next steps. He points out that both shops are located in the busiest part of the city, and so they realize Yoshimura is trying to set them up. Tojo questions the plan, saying that if the district is busy, sales should be good. Then his friend remembers that the plaza used to be Cobra's territory. Ri explains that this Cobra guy is known for making a living trading snakes. He beat a man almost to death and just got out of prison this year. The friend warns that he's completely insane and will definitely return to reclaim his territory. Tojo understands the trap but doesn't care if it's Cobra or anyone else. He swears that anyone who stands in his way will be crushed. Yuji says they've been together since they were kids and that no matter what happens, he's on his side. The others get fired up, saying that those who don't take risks get nothing, and they're in too. Seeing her concern, he tells her everything will be fine and not to worry. With both shops secured, they decide to celebrate by drinking until they drop. They toast in a restaurant, ready to drink all night long. In the middle of the party, one of them wonders where Tojo went. Yuji explains that he's always been weak with alcohol and probably went to the bathroom. Tojo returns with a bag in hand, making everyone curious. He takes out several brand new cell phones, one for each person in the group. One of them asks if the phones are really for them. Tojo hands out the devices, saying there's one for everyone. The man gets excited, saying it's the latest model and that Tojo's being very generous. He tests the phone, saying the games run smoothly and that he's finally upgraded. Ria notices hers is a different color, realizing he picked it just for her. Yuji says it must have been expensive and that he can't accept such a gift. Tojo explains that they risked their lives together, and this is nothing. Everyone gets emotional at the gesture, their trust in each other growing stronger. He raises his glass, promising that when they take everything, everyone will have their share. In the hallway, one of the men bumps into a hooded figure. He gets irritated and tells the guy to watch where he's going. Then he returns to the table and enjoys all that food. Soon after, Ria's phone rings and she answers with a simple hello. Across the table, one of the men answers his phone with a grin. Ria questions him, asking why he's calling when he's right in front of her. He says he just wanted to test his new phone, and everyone bursts out laughing. Suddenly, another man realizes his phone is gone. He remembers the guy who bumped into him in the bathroom and accuses him of stealing it. He gets ready to chase the thief, but Tojo stops him. He says the guy's drunk and that he'll check it out himself, telling the others to keep drinking. The two take off running, shouting for the thief not to escape. During the chase, the friend trips and falls to the ground. Tojo asks if he's okay, and he tells him to catch the guy first. Tojo tells him to go back, saying he'll handle the thief himself, and then he sprints off, running with incredible speed. Meanwhile, at the table, Ria's phone vibrates, and she yells for Kitamura to stop. He's confused and says he wasn't the one who called. She looks at the phone screen and sees a missed call from an unknown number. She calls back, answering with a cautious hello. On the other end, a voice threatens her, saying they're waiting at the usual place. The threat leaves her speechless, fear written all over her face. Meanwhile, Tojo continues the relentless chase through the city streets. The thief runs into a dead-end alley and the pursuit intensifies. Our hero appears right behind him, moving at great speed. The man tries to climb the wall, desperate to escape, but Tojo is faster and grabs him by the leg before he can get away. He pulls him down hard, throwing him back to the ground. With the thief on the floor, Tojo says he finally caught him. The man pleads, saying it's a misunderstanding and that he didn't steal anything. Tojo stares at him and it seems he now recognizes the guy. Seeing his reaction, the man calls him by name and asks why he's looking at him like that. We'll stop here for now, but if you want to see whether the protagonist will rise to the top, don't forget to leave a like and a comment. That's what keeps us going and bringing you the next chapters. So until the next video.